Hey, welcome to X-Oriente, the new voice of Brotherhood. I am your right worshipful caster, Eric Diamond.
I am your other right worshipful caster, Jason Van Dyke.
And this is probably going to be the last show of the year, you think?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
I'm going to Germany next week.
Ah, Germany.
Yeah, jawohl.
What are you going to...
Going for Christmas and New Year's. I'm going to celebrate that in Berlin. Yeah. I've gotten most of my Nazi jokes out already so that I won't slip up there.
That's good. That's good.
Most. Not all.
Not all.
There's still a distinct possibility that I will start some sort of international incident. Because I know at some point I'm going to ask someone like, I know you're really sure about that, and I think that you've probably solved my problem, but are you willing to say it's your final solution? And I'll probably say that out loud to someone, and I'll probably end up in jail. So,
you know what the antidote to that is?
I
think what you need to do is, first of all, you need to listen to a lot of Nina Hagen on the way over.
You're right.
Right.
I'll beat it all out of my system.
Right.
That's a good point.
Then what you need to do is go back to Saturday Night Live and watch all of Mike Myers Dieter,
That's true.
sketches.
That's true. Also, I plan on eating my weight in Knockwurst and currywurst, and probably wash that all down with some good glue and vine. So it's gonna be.
You know what's funny? So when my kid was really young, I used to play Call of Duty, and he used to, at one point, my wife was kind of concerned that my kid was being exposed to too much violence in Call of Duty. And so I thought, well, to prevent this, I'm going to make it into kind of like a comedy. Right. And so what I did was, every time, so do you remember the scene in Top Secret where he kills the guard and the guard falls off the tower and then shatters,
and then breaks into glass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So every time I would shoot a German guard off the tower, and by the way, this Call of Duty was like the original. It's like the World War II Normandy invasion one.
Mm-hmm.
I would sort of ventriloquize it and go, "Oh, no more schnoodle for me!" Right? And as he fell to his doom, right? It was like, "No more schnoodle for me," which led to begging the question: what exactly is schnoodle? Right?
I don't think that's a thing.
It isn't. It's a combination. It's a word I made up. It's a combination of noodles, strudel, and schnitzel.
Strudel. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Right.
So now we call German food, like whenever we want to go out for German food, we're going out for schnoodle.
Schnoodle. Yeah. Okay, a little schnoodle. I like that.
So yeah.
I'm going to ask them when I get there. Do you have any schnoodle?
Any schnoodle?
Mm-hmm. And I would like them to look at me. Wo ist das Schnoodle? Yeah.
Well, they're cool people. You'll have a good time.
Just enough German to get me in a lot of trouble.
That's good. Well, like I said,
ist eine Tochter 18.
They all speak English. They're cool people.
I know, but I really want to use ist eine Tochter 18, which is your daughter 18. And it's going to be equally uncomfortable with my wife there, but I don't care. Recently I was...
they're just going to look at her like...
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, it's totally true. I was home with some friends of mine, my old high school gaming group, and it was all the old D&D geeks, and we all had a reunion last year, and it was in January, and we did that in this little town called Oshkosh, which is a couple hours north of Milwaukee, at a friend's house. It was ridiculously cold outside, and a whole bunch of 40-year-old guys, kind of stormed this small town Piggly Wiggly with a giant liquor store attached. And we went through, and of course, I'm the guy that walks up with a handle of Malibu rum, and I put it on the counter, and I looked at the poor townie girl and went, "Hey, where do all the high school girls hang out?"
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
By the way, I have to apologize for my dog. So my dog he's very old. He's deaf as a post. Mm-hmm. And so he barks now pretty much nonstop.
That's okay. That's fine. Listen, I'll apologize for my wife because she has a friend over from out of town, and I've thrown them in the bedroom and closed all the doors I can. But I'm sure you'll hear cackling at some point. So I apologize on her behalf for everyone right now.
So apologies aside, I'm starting to thinking about Masonic Week.
Hey, great. I did too. I had my little Post-it because you and I talked, and I wrote some notes down on a Post-it, and I looked at that today.
Cool.
I was cleaning my desk off.
So one of the things that we're going to try to do is we're trying to set up, and I've actually been pretty lax about the project management stuff. But we're trying to get a bunch of podcasters who are going to be out there, the Masonic Roundtable guys and Sepulveda, like whoever we can get out there, and do some broadcasting together. So what I've done is I've taken the liberty of booking a suite instead of my normal hotel room.
It sounds so. You sound like such an ass. I've taken the liberty of booking us a suite on the QE2 back to the continent.
I don't know though, because there's, but I have to say their suites are not like, not like Fred Astaire, not it's like a Fred Astaire movie. Yeah. It's Crystal City Hyatt. So I have a feeling like what they call a suite is like a hotel room with like a big foyer. So
you can get a half a step more into your closet.
Yeah. So we're gonna try to do. I mean, the goal is to have pretty much nonstop podcasting for the entire week.
I think that's great. Masonic Week. We'll make your ears bleed.
Yeah, we will.
That's nice. Yeah. So I'm 100% in on that, and we do need to start planning that a little bit. I agree. I had thought of something today too, and now it just dumped out of my brain. Okay, you go, and then it'll come back.
Okay. So the other thing too is that I've been I was approached about giving the presentation at the Masonic Society banquet on Friday night, and I've yet to confirm that with them, but I've basically let them know. I mean, so what happened was I was in Korea. Actually not last week, but the week before. And that's when they approached me and I was like, well, look, if I don't have another commitment that I've already committed to, I'd be happy to do it. And I had to wait till I got back and I got back and I said, yep, I can do it. So, I've yet to just hear final confirmation of that. But if that's the case, then I would, urge everybody who's a member of the Masonic Society. First of all, if you're not a member of the Masonic Society, you should become a member of the Masonic Society. It's a good thing to do, and it's going to get better this year. I think that they've got some plans in the works for making some substantial upgrades to pretty much everything that's going to make it a much more fun society. And then my presentation is going to be a bit of a bomb thrower. So, it is. Yeah, so it should be really good times.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I remember what I was going to say, and that is that keep your eyes on the BBC. That's the British Broadcasting Corporation. Please don't Google BBC Urban Dictionary. Oh, yeah. But the British Broadcasting Corporation is currently working on a documentary, a full-length documentary on the history of Freemasonry, the actual history of Freemasonry. And so part of the what they call the real story that's better than the lie is that Freemasonry didn't start in Jolly-Old in London in 1717, but in fact started much, much earlier than that in Scotland. And so they're actually following around the Grand Master Mason of the Grand Lodge of Scotland, as he is called. And they're kind of they're telling the story of very, very early Freemasonry in the 12 and 1300s, and then kind of how it evolves into the modern day, and part of it is going to be juxtaposed by them following around the Grand Master Mason. So it's a really cool concept. It's really nifty. As part of that documentary, they came here to DC because the Grand Master Mason came to our installation for our new Grand Master this year, a couple weeks ago. And so in my capacity as the Director of Communications for the Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia, I ended up kind of hanging out with those guys for a little bit and just making sure that they were taken care of and that they got what they needed, and that they and then also to protect our guys, just in case. And so I had a really nice time with them. And it turns out these guys are really good. They've read more history than I would say 90% of most Masons. I mean, they really know their stuff. They know the real stuff too, not the little crap.
So
really
so this is not gonna be about how the Ark of the Covenant is buried under Rosslyn Chapel and the Templar ships
No, it has nothing to do with Templars in any way, shape, or form. And in fact,
not even in Oak Island.
Yeah, not even in Oak Island. It's unbelievably cool. So I'm really excited for it. They ended up interviewing me for a long time, so I'm fairly certain that I will make it onto this BBC documentary in some form. It was really cool because I generally have to run around at these things that I work, and so the producer was just like, "Hey, we're just gonna follow you, just so you know." All right, fine. And I was like, "Keep up," and they ran around with me for about a half an hour, 45 minutes. Before the cameraman was like, "Yeah, I can't do this anymore. It hurts a lot."
That's cool really and strangely terrifying.
It should be. It really should be. But here's the coolest part. Okay, so here's where X-Oriente, all you people, come in, is that they asked me a really cool question while they were interviewing me. One that I've answered a billion times, and I know Eric, you've answered a billion times too, which is just, what do you get out of Freemasonry? And, what would you tell someone if they asked you, what is Freemasonry? And it's an easy question, but like, for whatever reason, I don't know, the spirit got me, and I answered in a different way than I usually do. And I really started to think about it. And I was like, we had just talked about the fact that younger men are turning to Freemasonry as sort of an answer to an all digital life, and that they need something that's personal, that's real, and that they need to understand what true friendship is and what brotherhood means, and they do that through the context of Freemasonry. And I said, what's really interesting is that you get all these young people who are coming into Masonry, and it's because you can't tell someone what they're going to get from this or what I get out of it in 120 characters or 240 characters these days. You just can't do that. This isn't media friendly. It's not a soundbite. This is something that is much bigger. It's way too complex to just put in simple marketing terms. And that's what everything tries to boil itself down to today, are these, simple bullet pointy things that everyone can remember and call back. But Freemasonry is way too big for that. And it offers the things that it offers are too complex to just put into that little bucket. And so I really started to think about that, and I thought, oh, that could be a blog post. I'm working on a blog post for you, X-Oriente.
Cool.
So there's that.
Yeah, no, I like that idea. I like the, I like the fact that it's kind of lots of things to lots of people. I still think though, one of the things that I've always talked about is sort of the idea that we have a terrible elevator pitch.
Totally.
And I think that
there's a reason for that.
Well, I know, but at the same time, I think it's putting people off. So basically there's two ways that you come to Freemasonry, right? Is that you know somebody who's a Mason, right? That's sort of the almost the normal way of doing it, right? You know your dad or your brother or your friend or whoever is a Mason, and he brings you to lodge, and you sort of dip your toe into that pool and find an ocean there, right?
Right.
The other way is that you hear about it somehow, or you read about it, or you find out about it in some way by reading some kind of media. And that's where the elevator pitch kind of thing comes in handy. And here's the thing. I'm not saying that there needs to be one unitary elevator pitch, but I think we need to do a better job of, communicating the value. Like what is it? What is like? So I thought thought it was interesting about what you just said was that what they asked you, which is what do you get out of Freemasonry? I think by asking that question, they were looking for the elevator pitch.
Well, of course they were, and my point to them was there is no elevator pitch, and I don't think, I just don't think that there can be. I think that, and what's really funny, what's hilarious about this, by the way, and the irony is not lost on me, is that what I gave them was an elevator pitch of that we don't have an elevator pitch. But it's true, right? Is that, I can tell you in 30 seconds, hey, this is too big for you. I can tell you in 30 seconds, you're not going to get what you want from me in 30 seconds. But hopefully you're intrigued enough to come back and maybe get a little bit more, maybe give me 10 minutes, give me a half an hour. Right. And then I can start to explain this stuff better. But I just don't think, I think that the main reason we don't have an elevator pitch is because it can't be elevator pitched. And that's not a bad thing. That's actually a really, really, really good thing.
Yeah.
Because if I could elevator pitch it, then,
how deep could it really be? Right.
Right. Exactly.
Well, okay. Yeah. I would say yes and no. Right.
Sure.
I think the presentation that I've come up with for Masonic Week, I think kind of in a way addresses that. And so I kind of have a proposal for what that pitch might be. So stay tuned.
I think part of it. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going to give it anyway. We're not going to talk about that. We're not talking about that.
No, we'll talk about it later.
That didn't happen.
But, so it was interesting. We were going to do a show yesterday. Normally Sunday is our recording night, and I had, some house issues that I had to take into consideration. But then, and we were just kind of like going to sort of wrap up the year and just sort of, a little bit of odds and ends and, maybe some New Year's resolutions, Masonic New Year's resolutions and stuff. But then this morning, actually, was it this morning? Let's see. Yeah, this morning on Brother Hodapp's blog, the Freemasons for Dummies blog, he kind of published this really kind of interesting post by a brother, Greg Starr. And what he did was he took a kind of a speech, and he asked the question, he says, read it and consider the ideas and philosophy it contains. He says, but here's the $64,000 question. Would you have the strength to stand up in lodge and speak these words? So I guess here's my question. Should we just read the passage?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Knock, 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 knock. We're not in. Brother Masons, from this day forward, we're not in for just anyone knocking on our door. We're in, but only for the worthy. From this day forward, everything that was wide open is going to be closed. Opening lodges to public viewing, we've already done it. Kowtowing to stylish trends, been there, done that. Tolerance having been replaced with acceptance, doesn't live here anymore. It's been evicted. It vacated the lodge for the new tenant, who has diametrically opposite tastes in decorating. We've been reaching out to others for years now. It's time to stop. We're not going anywhere. We're here. Because what are we? We are cement, and cement doesn't move. We are cement without windows, so we don't look to the outside world. To be true and to seek to find and learn the truth are the great objects of every good Mason, said Brother Albert Pike, and he was right. We have no reason to look out and seek the approval of the mundane. Instead, look over there. What do you see? That's the West Gate, the only way in. Small and extremely uncomfortable, and anyone who wants to know us has to find out how to get through that door. Brothers, we need to go back to being prohibitive, inaccessible, and mysterious. That's the only way we can once again become desirable. That is the only way great love stories are born. We don't want any more part-time Masons. We want great love stories. We want passion for the craft and for its teachings. Because the fire and the passion is love. Everything else is strictly a surrogate, and it stays outside the order. With the attitudes of recent leadership around the globe, the craft won for itself great expressions of fondness from the masses. It became popular. Isn't that wonderful, you might be thinking. We receive plenty of esteem and lots of friendship. We really have no idea what to do with the friendship of the whole wide world. What we want is absolute love and total devotion to the craft. Could that mean Masonry only for the few? That's a hypothesis, and a hypothesis isn't the same as reality, but even this hypothesis isn't so scandalous. I say, better to have a few that are reliable than to have a great many that are distractible and indifferent. The public squares have been jam-packed, but the hearts have been emptied of our teachings. You can't measure love with numbers. You can only measure it in the terms of intensity, in terms of blind loyalty to the imperative. Fix that word firmly in your souls. Imperative. From this day forth, that's what the brethren want. That's what the craft wants. That's what humanity wants. And so the ritual will no longer be blind recitation. It must be understood, internalized, and will become hard work. And if misdeeds and scandal will no longer be forgiven at will. We don't expect any applause. There will be no expressions of thanks. None from me and none from you. Feigned courtesy and good manners are not the business of the Sons of Light. What is expected is that you will do what is correct. There is nothing outside your obedience to the landmarks and teachings. Nothing except darkness. A darkness you may not recall, but should, because it stands right behind that gate, the abyss. We can't be afraid to lose brothers if they are faithless, corrupt, recidivist, or stain the craft, and that means we do not negotiate on anything or with anyone. We cannot be enticed, blackmailed, threatened, lured, or cajoled. From this day forth, with regard to membership, the word compromise has been banished from the vocabulary. When our Grand Master Hiram willingly suffered, he was not making compromises, and neither will we.
Now that's a hand grenade.
That's a hand grenade.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what's interesting is the source. So they reveal the source is a long soliloquy. It's a soliloquy. Where did it come from?
From The Young Pope, which was an HBO limited series with Jude Law. And it's about Jude Law is very young. He's in his 30s when he is elected by the cardinals as Pope, unexpectedly. And when he ascends and takes a new name, he takes Pius XIII as his name, and they expect him to kind of be a tool of and a puppet of kind of the same bureaucracy that exists in the Vatican, and instead he comes in with fire and fury, and says, "We're going back to the old church where people feared us, because nobody fears us anymore, and thus no one cares." And when he talks about how, you know, in this soliloquy, which is kind of taken out, right before this happens, they put this giant gold mitre on him that the Pope hasn't worn since the 50s.
Yeah, that's the papal tiara.
Correct, the papal tiara. And then they put his actual gold vestments on him, which are, I mean, again, hasn't worn since the 50s, but they are literally sewn with gold, and are incredibly heavy and crazy. And it is the most ostentatious display of papal power. And he puts it all on in front of just the cardinals, and then reams them out with this speech, and basically tells them, fun time is over. Now we're getting back to work. And the cardinals' jaws drop because, you know, things have been going so well. and he throws a wrench into it and kind of threatens to bring back the very old ways, where the Pope wielded significant political power, as well as financial power and all that stuff, which is really interesting. I mean, growing up Catholic, I would hear these stories, and they never really matched the Catholicism I knew. This shows you what could happen if someone said, "Nah, let's go back to that."
So what I found interesting about the show as the outsider was that one of the things about the show, without getting into any real spoilers, because if you are able to watch the show, you should. It's actually quite well done.
It really is. It's really artfully done as well. It's less. You know what? Let me describe it this way. It's House of Cards, directed by David Lynch and starring the Pope.
Yeah, kind of. So one of the things that I found really interesting is the way that they portray Pius XIII, right? They portray him. He's a guy you really want to hate. You really want to hate him.
Yep.
Because he is just, he's kind of a dick. He's
a
kind
total
of,
dick.
He's
horrible to people.
Yeah, he's pretty nasty to people, but he's true to the church. I mean, he's true. Like he walks the walk, he's
and
not, he's not a hypocrite. The way that they
set him up. Right. And the way that they set him up. Yeah. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but it's really interesting that, they really want you to hate him, but it's impossible.
Yeah.
You just slowly learn, like, oh my God, he's not screwing around. Like he's
charming. He's compassionate. He's, unless you happen to be part of the establishment in which,
correct.
But
which he wants to destroy and has made, and makes no bones about saying it out loud.
Yeah. So
it's really interesting.
Yeah. So what I find kind of interesting though is, let me ask you. So what Greg Starr did, right, is he sort of took this soliloquy and kind of shaved out all the references to Catholicism and Christianity and kind of built in, sort of the, like took all the nouns right out and substituted them with Masonic nouns.
Absolutely.
So my question is, does it work?
Sure it does. It does exactly what, it reads and it feels exactly like it does when you see it in the show. And if you go on Hodapp's link, there's a really great clip of him giving this soliloquy that you should really go and watch.
Yeah, I think it does. We'll put that in the show notes for sure.
And I think that it works out really well. Here's my thing though, is that what is it really saying, right? And does it speak to you? I think that's the more important question. It works because I think the language is the way that it's structured. The speech itself is structured specifically to elicit an emotional response, and it does that very well. Whoever wrote this screenplay did a very, very good job of this speech. And actually, I think Greg Starr does a great job of tailoring it, right, without losing the power that's behind it. And that's great. But I think that the real point is do you agree with what it's saying?
Well, that's my question. That's my question, because I have definitely mixed feelings about it.
Mixed feelings. Well, first, your mixed feelings, I think, and let me see if I'm right. Do your mixed feelings come from where they come from me, which is, that's all fine and good. And I want desperately to be the person that he's talking about here. But the truth is that I probably am not. And what this says is, are you orthodox enough to stay in this? I want to be that guy. Everybody wants to be the guy that's looked at and your devotion, your zealotry for the craft would give you speeches that they talk about you like that. Everybody would want that. But the truth is, almost nobody lives up to that. I mean, Pike doesn't live up to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not even close. And the thing is that, especially when he says, that's the West Gate, and it's going to be small and uncomfortable, and it's difficult to get in. I immediately thought, yeah, this is my fraternity. But then I thought, yeah, but would I have ever gotten in if that gate was smaller and more uncomfortable?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's kind of like, to kind of break it down, right? On the first part of this, he talks about, kowtowing to stylish trends. We've been there, done that, tolerance having been replaced with acceptance, doesn't live here anymore. It's been evicted.
Right.
Right. All right. That, on the one hand, I kind of understand where he's coming from on this. Like, I get it. Like, maybe like the spirit of openness, the idea of, like, for example, in England, they remove the penalties from the obligation,
Right. Sure.
Things like that do make me a little uncomfortable, because I feel like, if you water it down too much, it's not, it's not masonry anymore. It's something else.
It loses its meaning.
Yeah. But this idea that, tolerance having been replaced with acceptance doesn't live it's been evicted. That makes me uncomfortable. And what makes me uncomfortable is like this phrase where it says, we're not going anywhere. We're here because what are we? We are cement, and cement doesn't move. And that, maybe I'm reading this wrong, but that just makes me like, I feel like, no, that's our problem. That's our problem, is we have been cement. We haven't adapted to the times. We haven't changed.
Yeah. And I think what really gets me is the end of this, where he says, what is expected is that you will do what is correct. There is nothing outside your obedience to the landmarks and teachings, nothing except darkness. I think part of the central teaching of Freemasonry is that there is no black and there is no white. There are only the shades of gray that exist between the two things. And that you need to be smart enough to navigate your way through that while trying to do what's morally right. And what's morally right might not be right. Might not be wrong, but it might not be right.
Mm-hmm.
And so Freemasonry teaches you how to do those things. Part of being a better man is being a nuanced man and understanding that there's more to life than black and white, right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the Enlightenment is about. That's what this is all about. If you look back at the bad old days of the Catholic Church, that's how you control people, is you control people by saying there is right, and that's what I do, and there's wrong, that's what you do. There is no in between. Therefore, I am glorified. You are to be stepped on. Period. Not a humanistic approach in any way, shape, or form, right?
Right.
And so that bothers me, because I think if you pull that, you start pulling an attitude like that into Freemasonry, and now we've got to worry, because that's not what we teach at all. And in fact, we teach the direct opposite from that. I mean, it feels good to say that stuff, right? Because it's easy and it makes you feel better, because this thing isn't talking about you. It's not talking about Eric Diamond. It's not talking about any of that.
Right. It's all those other idiots.
It's all those other people. Right. Exactly. Right. It feels good. But I caution people, because I think that I think it's really important when you read things like this to read it from an outsider's perspective. Don't read this as read it as a Freemason and feel like all fired up and ready to go. And, I'm going to go, I'm going to go raise the neighborhood. But the thing is that read this as an outsider and think, oh, there's so many swear words I want to say to this guy. Like, you are obnoxious. You're and arrogant. Like, who are you to tell me that, you're the right one and I'm the wrong one because I understand nuance.
Right.
Yeah. So
what about the passage where he says, the Westgate, like, we need to go back to being prohibitive. We need to go back.
Right. Listen, and we've talked about this, we really have. And there's merit there. There really is. There's some merit to that. At the same time, I think that we've talked, like I said, we've talked about it a ton. And I think that we always come to the conclusion of, yeah, you need to watch the Westgate, but you also need to watch yourself watching the Westgate. Mm-hmm. Why, if you say no, why are you saying no? And I think we should always be looking for reasons to say yes rather than reasons to say no. But in that, it should be difficult. It should be a test. So there's nothing wrong with that.
So I guess what I'm wondering out loud is, does it need to be prohibitive or does it need to be arduous? Right? Like, I think it, like, I like the idea that it would be arduous. I think you should have to work to get your degree.
I agree with that.
I don't know that it needs to be prohibitive.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think if you seek it,
Mm-hmm.
if you come to the door of the lodge and you knock on the door of the lodge, it should be open to you, right? You should be given that chance. We shouldn't say, I'm not gonna let you in because you don't have enough money, or you don't dress well, or you don't have the right degree, or that
you're not a baby boomer.
You're not a baby boomer, right? Or you're not Christian, or whatever. It's like it.
That's right.
And so like, where it says that's the only way we can once again become desirable.
And I think that watching the Westgate, what's really interesting is that the way that watching the Westgate is talked about in things like this is it's talked about in a way, that says the Westgate is where the decision is made. And I disagree with that. Like, meaning the vote, right? That you got to come to a vote. Mm-hmm. We ought to cube more people. I think actually the Westgate happens well before you ever even get to voting. And in fact, I'm a firm believer in that if you cube someone, you're at fault. You've done something
I agree.
Very wrong.
I completely agree with that.
There's absolutely, in my mind, no reason that we should ever exercise the right to throw a black cube if we do our jobs correctly. As an investigation committee and as a lodge in general, where we go out and we meet new prospective members and we talk to them and we get to know them and we both decide as adults that we want to continue our relationship together, right? In these days of sexual assault, let's talk about philosophical assault, right? There should be, here comes my hyper liberalism. We ought to have consensual philosophical discussion together. And if you don't want to have that with me, if we don't click like that, you need to go somewhere else because I'm already here, right? I'm already belong to this lodge. But we both have to be able to be adult enough to understand that, like, it doesn't always work out. Mm-hmm. Maybe it works in a different lodge. Maybe, that's what it is. But again, this is about relationships, and relationships don't always work. I'm a Gen Xer. I grew up as a product of divorce. I know intimately that relationships don't always work, and that's an adult thing to figure out, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm okay with it. I'm okay with everything that comes with it. But if you get to a point where you got to cube someone, you're way too late. You should have had having much more adult conversations. You should have known each other much better before you got to that point.
Yeah, no, I agree. So one of the things that I totally bought into was He says, you can't measure love with numbers. You can only measure it in terms of intensity. Mm-hmm. Right? He totally had me there and then kind of lost me the very next sentence, which was in terms of blind loyalty to the imperative. Fix that word firmly in your souls, imperative. This is, I think, where the specter of Catholicism, can't quite get away from that one. But
no, you can't.
Yeah, but that made me uncomfortable because of this idea that, that first of all, whenever I hear blind loyalty, blind anything is not what we're about, right? We're about removing blinds.
That's exactly right. Blind is darkness.
Yeah.
I totally agree. You know what's really funny is because I feel the exact same way about what you talked about a little bit before, which was, we've been reaching out to others for years now. It's time to stop. We're not going anywhere. We're here because what are we? We are cement, and cement doesn't move. We are cement without windows, so we don't look to the outside world. Lost me on that very last sentence.
Yeah, right. I was like, oh.
It had me all the way to it because it had me all the way there. It had me to, listen, we look at all these other people and say, well, what do you want us to be? Because we can be that. No, we can't be everything to everyone.
Right.
We're never going to be as big as we were, and part of the reason that we were so big is because we had become sort of a mutual benefit society. We lost a lot of what our fraternity really was about when we got that big.
Mm-hmm.
We started out very small. We started out very exclusive, and then it got giant, and now it's small again, but it's not small by our choice. So we're freaking out. It's okay. Relax. We're fine. We don't need anybody else. We've got us, and we're okay. And we've got to be all right with that, And for the people who pine for the days of a 350 member Scottish Rite class, that happened twice a year, you're an idiot. That will never, ever come again. Ever. Sorry. And if it does, I probably don't want to be a part of it. I'll go find something else. I hear the OTO is giving great benefits these days. It's like masonry with benefits. The OTO. Yeah. That's my new slogan for them. Masonry with benefits.
Ew.
Yeah. Isn't that creepy? I like that. So I mean, there are great parts of this thing. And there's so many parts that grab you. Like, I want to believe. But don't.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, exactly. Like you have to it's a super interesting experiment.
It is, and it's great, and it's so well written, dude. It's so well written. I mean, I really love it, and he did such a good job adapting this. Like, it's just great. I would say that the only thing that I didn't like is I didn't like the Pike stuff in there, because that's actually, I think, from what I remember from the speech in the show, I think that's where he talks about Jesus and Jesus saying something, and he totally twists something that Jesus says into being totally elitist and awful, and wait,
well, I have to go back to that part because I don't.
To be true and to seek to find and learn the truth are the great objects of every good Mason, said Brother Albert Pike, and he was right. We have no reason to look out and seek the approval of the mundane. I get what he's trying to do there. I just don't. Stylistically, I think it's too easy. I think everything else in this is so well crafted, and that feels forced.
Really, I didn't think so. I disagree. I don't think so.
That's my criticism.
Okay.
Maybe what you do, and here this is now we're starting to get into stuff that I'm sure none of our listeners care about. But here comes the wordsmith in me and the professional speechwriter. If you're going to use a quote like that, I'd kill the Brother Albert Pike. There's too much going on there. You either call him Pike because everybody knows, and if you don't know, you shouldn't be listening to my speech. Again, goes with the attitude of the speech, right? Or you call him Brother Pike, maybe. But even that, the thing is that this speech is not about brotherhood, happy, good feelings, right? And yet he calls him Brother Albert Pike. Brother, hey, we're all friends, love, number one. And then Albert Pike, hey, go look it up on the internet. Like if you don't know who I'm talking about, maybe I would have just said, Pike said to be true. And if you don't understand where that quote's coming from or what that means, then, that's the attitude.
Honestly,
of the speech. The speech is all about balls.
That didn't bother me as much. But I did agree with this statement. We have no reason to look out and seek the approval of the mundane. I would say the profane.
The profane, sure.
Right. But
mundane's fine for me. You know what? Profane, I don't like that term. And I don't like it in masonry because it feels too religious to me, right? And that's just because I grew up Catholic, and that's what you are if you're not Catholic. You're profane. The Jews have their Gentiles, we have our profane, and I've never been a big fan of that because it really suggests a willful stupidity on other people's parts. You're profane, like you're lying down in the muck. Well, I'm exalted for this knowledge.
I kind of look at it as a technical term, So for example, the Hebrew word we use is goyim, goy,
yeah,
right? Which all it means is nations,
sure,
right? It has no connotation of anything other. It just means if someone who's not a Jew, who's not
right, it's others.
Others, sure. Yeah, that's all it means. So I kind of look at profane, like before fane, whatever that is. But I mean, it's like,
yeah. Oh, there you go.
I've been outed. I suck at Latin.
Yeah. If you're really gonna parse the word, Eric, you've done a great job. It's before.
Before fane. But anyway, yeah. So.
Eric Diamond, ladies and gentlemen, vocabulary genius
in France.
Right. I like mundane. I like mundane better.
That's fine.
I like mundane, and mundane also. It feels more human to me.
Okay, cool. Mundane.
It feels less insulty. That's a new word I just made up. Insulty, which means having the feeling of insult. You're welcome. I'm not making fun of you at all.
No, it's fine. It's all good. I like this part. It's sort of at the end. He says, "We cannot be afraid to lose brothers if they are faithless, corrupt, recidivist, or stay in the craft, and that means we do not negotiate." I can buy that.
We're getting closer.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I mean, and I like it. He uses the way that this speech is written. Actually, uses a lot of very traditional speech parts. It uses repetition. It uses call and answer. It uses rhetorical call and answer. Mm-hmm. This is a speech that MLK would have been more than happy to give. And if you actually look at it, that there are speech devices in here that he employed all the time. Mm-hmm. It comes in threes or fours, but no more, no less. There is always three or four. And this repetition, we cannot be enticed, blackmailed, threatened, lured, or cajoled. So good. I mean, it's just great, right? And the best part is that, like, he's saying the exact same thing over and over again, but that's the point. The point is to pound it into your head,
right?
And it's so good. I really like it a lot. It's, you walk a fine line in a speech like this, when you use a device like that of treating your audience, you're basically saying to your audience, you're too stupid to understand what I'm going to say. So I'm going to use 8 different words so that one of them rings that little bell in the back of your snake brain, and that you get it. But with a speech like this, with a forceful authoritarian speech like this, it's really effective, because that's what your audience wants. Your audience wants to be led. This is like the St. Crispin's Day soliloquy, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What is that about? It's about being led. What is happening in that speech is that he is leading, he is inspiring the people around him to run screaming and happily to their deaths. Right? They're all about to die. And he's whipping them up to say, you're going to die, and you will be remembered in glory. You will be clothed in the glory of this day. And like, he says it in so many different ways, and it has a nice crescendo to it. Mm-hmm. This thing has a nice crescendo to it. So I agree with you. I mean, I think it's great. It's so good. It's really, really interesting. And like, I like it. I agree with you. I like that sentence that, we don't negotiate.
Yeah. So kind of the final irony of this is that if you watch the show without giving too much away, basically it does not go so well for the church, right? No. And it correct. Kind of almost requires like an act of God to kind of turn things, you know what I mean? Like totally. Like for all that, like, yes, it was like, no,
Right. It turns out God wanted something different.
Well, we don't know, because they left us hanging for a second season, which they're going to do. They're going to make a second season.
Are they really going to do it?
Yeah. It's been green lighted. So it's probably in production as we speak. Yeah. But so like, here's the thing. We're gonna put the link into the show notes. But go to Chris's blog. Look, if you're listening to this, you probably already read Chris's blog. If you don't, get to Chris's blog, right? Because it's probably the best source of Masonic news outside of the Past Bastard, and this stuff is real, where the Past Bastard isn't.
Right. It's Freemasons for Dummies. We do not negotiate.
Yeah, freemasonsfordummies.blogspot.com. My only wish for the blog is that Chris could figure out a way to get it onto a different platform, because it's so freaking hard to read sometimes. But it's great stuff. This is a great article. Kudos to Greg Starr for doing this. This is an amazing thought experiment. Cool. I'd love to see more of these.
Right.
It's interesting
to throw those hand grenades into the room sometimes.
And I'm going to do a proper plug of this book, but last week my friend Sean Iyer, who's he's the editor, the editor in chief of the Philadelphia Society Journal, and a good friend of mine, and he contacted me. We were kind of going back and forth, and he mentioned that he was editor of a book that just got published in honor of the tercentenary. And like an idiot, I left my copy upstairs. Otherwise, I'd be showing it to you right now. So we'll do a proper plug in the next show. But it's something like I think it's called like Studies in Honor of. I'm gonna let me just go look it up on Amazon, because I did buy it. I should at least get the title right.
Yeah, that would be nice.
It'd be the Menschkeit thing to do. Okay, so let's go to... Here we go.
My dog just made a strange noise.
It's called Exploring Early Grand Lodge Freemasonry, Studies in Honor of the Tricentennial of the Establishment of the Grand Lodge of England. And basically what it is, it's a bunch of essays. I've just started it, but one of the things that was kind of interesting was they talked about Masonic songs and how, it was very common, and to take a Masonic song, and it was very common in the 18th century to take a common song that everybody knew, everybody knew, like, maybe Auld Lang Syne or, Deck the Halls or something like that, and put new lyrics to it. right? So what you'd see is you'd see a poem and it would say sung to the tune of, right?
Yeah, right.
And,
Sure.
and there's plenty of those, and even in our table proceedings we do a lot of those as well. And I mentioned that Ben Franklin had written a letter to a brother and said, by composing this original music, you realize you're making it harder on yourself because people don't know the tune, right?
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
But anyway, the book is so far it's really good, and I'll do a full book report later.
Yes. Okay.
But I thought it was interesting, and I thought in terms of what Greg Starr did, he kind of did the same thing. He kind of took an existing song, if you will, in this case, a soliloquy off of an HBO series, and sung to the tune of, right? That's
great. Yeah. Oh, totally.
This
I
young
never thought of
poet.
that. I like that. That's clever. That's cool.
And so I'd love to see this, done in other, with other pieces. I think it would be kind of interesting.
Right. Hoosiers hasn't been done. That last speech hasn't been done really in Freemasonry. We need to get somebody on that.
Hoosiers, really?
Yeah.
Hoosiers.
Rudy also would be a great adaptation. Pick your sports movie. My plug of the week will go to my blog, which is the Voice of Freemasonry blog on the Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia's website. I have a really, 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 really cool story coming out on Thursday. Keep your eye on the Facebooks. Thursday afternoon, I'll post it. I will tell you exclusively here that it is written by a friend of the show, Chris Hodapp, who's a member of Potomac Lodge number 5 here in D.C. He is a member of some Royal Arch thing that I don't care about. But the important thing is that he was in their archives. He was looking at old ledger books, like, sign-in ledger books, and found at the very end of the ledger book from 1861 for his chapter, the secretary must have just been like, there are these 2 blank pages here at the end of this book. I'll just write something. And it is called something about like on thoughts of the War of 1861. And it is a 1.5 page handwritten account of what it was like in 1861 in the nation's capital. And it is terrifying.
Wow.
Dead serious. Terrifying. It's terrifying, and it's chilling. It's so brutally honest, and it's emotional. You can tell that the guy has some real deep fears about what's going on, and that it sickens him that Americans are just killing each other. We're not that far away from a revolution to start this great country, and we're already at each other's throats. And it's really interesting. And it's really interesting from a Masonic perspective. So that's what I'll say. And you should read it. It's really cool. Yeah, it'll be on the blog. It'll be on the Voice of Freemasonry blog. So.
All right, we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Everything goes in the show notes. All right. Well, okay. So just a couple more bits of housekeeping, and then we'll sign off for the air. And
go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to thank our executive producers.
I'd like to thank our executive producers as well. Thank you.
Yeah, without you, there's no show. New packets went out yesterday. So if you haven't gotten your executive producer packet, if you don't get it in the next week or so, drop us a line and let me know, because we'll make sure that you get another out to you forthwith. We've got all new supplies, so that shouldn't be an issue. That was an issue before. check out, if you haven't already, check out our new blog at X-Oriente.com. We're going to be adding to it. What's great is that I'm pretty much off till the end of the year, so I'm going to have time on my hands. So in addition, like today, I spent the entire day writing my speech. It was great. Finally,
if I only lived the bougie life you live.
My life ain't so bougie. Let me tell you, it's like it's work till all hours. You know,
right? Exactly.
I mean, literally, like my last. I have to tell you, my last business trip. So I traveled 47 hours, almost 48 hours.
Yeah.
And was on the ground for less than 40. I think like 43 hours, 42 hours.
No.
Yeah,
it was a solid pass. Hard pass.
It's pretty. It's pretty brutal, but it's fun. It's fun work, and I enjoy it. So so there's that. So check out the blog at X-Oriente.com, and if you can, join us for Masonic Week, and if you want to know more about when we're going out there and stuff, just kind of stay tuned. I might do like a little bloglet announcement, before we come back in January. I'll be spending the rest of the year kind of coming up with more material for shows. And so that's, I'm trying to think if there's anything else housekeeping wise. Oh yeah. I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. If you're
Happy Hanukkah,
Happy Hanukkah. It's wrapping up, but it's still going on right now.
I thought it was over. I thought today was the last day.
I think tomorrow? Maybe today or tomorrow. But so Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Kwanzaa. If you're celebrating Kwanzaa, I hope your holidays are fantastic. They're full of joy and light and peace and brotherhood. And let's hope that 2018 is nothing like 2017 was, or nothing like 2016 was. And let's hope that it's a really good. I'm looking forward to a really good year, full of really positive things. It's a low bar. It's a low bar. So anyway, thank you all. Thanks to the people who came to the live stream. Rich and Mike. It's been great, and special thanks to Mike Hambrecht. He's been a real amazing booster of the show, and we haven't really hugged you enough, Mike. But when we see you next, we'll be all over you like white on rice. So that's about it from me.
I got nothing else to add to that. That's
just like we want to know what you think of the show. We want to know what you want to hear more of, what you want to hear less of. Feel free to drop us a line at xoriente@gmail.com, or leave a comment on the X-Oriente Facebook page, or leave a comment on our swanky new blog at xoriente.com. And until then, this is Eric and Jason saying goodbye. Fiat Fox.
Bye, guys.